Greetings, I'm Bruce. I'm one half of the Dad's Talk Tech YouTube channel team, and I know that probably doesn't mean a lot to you because we are a very small channel, so most of, if not all of you, have probably never heard of Dad's Talk Tech. Anyway, I'm here to do the unofficial walkthrough of the components of the Marbl Orbit Pro Kit. So this is really designed to outline the differences between the Pro and the Base and Studio kits. The Pro Kit comes with the Pro bag. It ships not in the separate boxes as the other kits do, but in this bag. The bag is set up to be brought on to flights if you need to, carried around, and makes the Orbit a portable unit. So with that, let's go ahead and dig in. First thing, I've already got the shoulder strap attached. It is going to ship in this front pouch, and so you can put that in there when you are going to check this. I would not keep the shoulder strap attached when you actually travel and you check the bag, because it will catch on things and break it. So when you go to check this, remove the shoulder strap. This obviously, the hand strap does not remove, so you'll leave that attached. Let's go ahead and jump into the Orbit kit. And so we're going to unzip the top pouch. There are two different sections to unzip, and we are going to cover what's in both areas. So right off the bat, we've got a lot of dividers. This is really well thought out in terms of getting all of the components that you need separated out and put where you can find them easily. Some of the pouches are zippered, others are just open. So let's go ahead and just start with maybe some of the hardware pieces. So we have got a bolt kit. This is, sorry about the reflection there. This is a bolt and a nut. What we use this for is going to be evident here after a bit, but let's go ahead and just put this aside. I'm going to put the plastic bag over here as well. So we're going to put that aside. We'll come back to what that bolt is and what we're going to use it for, but it does have an important purpose, so do not lose that. And then some of our other components here are really the hardware that you would use for mounting the ceiling plate to the ceiling. And so it's possible that you'd use this kit, but understand that the ceiling plate will get used for the Pro kit as mounting it to the rail system that you choose. So if you want to have a permanent installation and have the Orbit be portable, you may want to look at, when they're available again, getting a separate ceiling mount for that so that you aren't removing that from your ceiling and putting it back in. I don't know that that would be great in terms of, putting those screws in, removing them, putting them in, removing them, in terms of having that permanent installation be solid. Apologize again for the noise that that's going to make. Let's go ahead and go to the next pouch, and it actually is loaded with lots of good stuff. So we have got some Velcro straps, and you might be wondering what these are for. If you do use a larger lens, heavier or longer, this is going to give you the ability to provide a little additional support for those lenses. So you would actually strap that to the arm and give it some additional support. So we're going to go ahead and put these aside. We'll put this all back when we're done. Here we have a couple of plug converters. So these are for the power supply that ships with the unit. I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead to this big pouch so I can pull out the power supply. This does ship with a 12-volt power supply, which is great. I'm going to put this cable aside because that actually does have a purpose as well. I'm going to pull a couple other things out here. This is the very long corded 12-volt power supply that is going to power either your light ring or the Orbit device itself, and it will charge or power them, either one. And so what we can do is, if you need to change out the plug to one of the two included plugs, mine is set for the US, you would simply push this button, turn that, you can remove it, then you'd put on the one that you want, and then turn that and lock it back in place. So you can use that for your locale. From what I understand, I don't think there is an Australian plug, although I'm not super familiar with that. That's some of what I've been reading online, that there's no Australian plug today. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back in to the pouch that it was in. I'm going to put the power supply aside, along with the power cord, the long power cord power supply, there's also a couple of cables here. This is going to be something that you would use if you have a V-mount battery. And so V-mount battery is going to look something like this, has a couple of ports. And so you have the D-tap connector that is here. And so that would allow you to run this very long cable from the D-tap and then split that off into the D-tap to 12-volt connector that you have for the light ring or for the Orbit itself. And then let's say that you wanted to run also off of USB. You have USB capability here as well. So you do have some options on the D-tap on this V-mount battery as well, and they give you the D-tap, which is super nice that that is included with your kit. So you would use something like this if you needed to be in the field for an extended period of time. We'll show you that component, but this V-mount, which is why it's called a V-mount, this V-mount connector has a special receiver. It's actually included in our kit, and we'll cover that as we're going through more of that kit. But again, here's the V-mount, here's the D-tap connector, and we have cables for that, so that if you do need to run in the field for an extended period of time, you can use one of these V-mount batteries. And they come in various sizes. This one is a 10,000 milliamp or 150 watt hour version. All right, so we also get this nice clamp that is in the kit. So this is going to allow you to clamp this onto one of the arms or even on the supporting pole, wherever you want it, and then it's going to give you that 1/4-20 or that 3/8 connector. So that way, if you need to have a component that you install onto the Orbit someplace, whether that be the weights themselves, you want some extra light, or you want to put the cell phone camera mount on this, you could certainly do so. So it's just nice that they're giving you a component that you can install one of those items and have that on your Orbit kit. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back into the storage area again. Moving over one section, let's go ahead and pull this out. So we talked about the V-mount. Let's go ahead and get that out real quick. So this V-mount connector can be, again, attached to something with this 1/4-20 thread. And now you've got the connector where you can put the V-mount attachment on. And this is going to receive that V-mount from the battery, for example. And so we've got that capability of connecting this. And it does come with some screws and the wrench for working with this. So again, it's everything is set up to be as complete as possible. So you're not looking for connectors, you're not looking for screws, you're not looking for these various components that you need. Let's go ahead and open up this. So let's say that you have a camera that does not have a cold shoe or a hot shoe. Then you can actually put this on a cage, or I know the Blackmagic cameras, they have the ability to have a 1/4-20 put on there. Most cages are going to have a 1/4-20 capability. So you can actually use this little connector, and I apologize, I'm having trouble focusing on it. Let's see if I can get my camera to do that. There we go. So you can see this is just a cold shoe adapter that will screw in via a 1/4-20 threaded screw, and that is also included along with a wrench to do so. So again, very nice that they thought of that, since the camera mount, as you'll see, is one that is going to leverage that hot shoe or cold shoe in order to hang your camera. So let's go ahead and jump up to this pouch. And so this is the infamous Moon. It is a gray. You can use this not only in order to, the gray, instead of a gray card, you have the gray Moon, but also it is a good target to aim your focus at. And it is recommended that you set your lens or camera to manual focus instead of autofocus. So you can see here's our Moon. There's also a small level that you're given, a bubble level. This attaches to the bottom of the light ring, and so you can use this to help, again, level out your orbit. And then in order to aim this and do all of that technique and figure out where your subject should be, again, you'd hang this from the orbit and have this basically where the subject, whether it's an object or a person, they would then replace where this is, and you'd set your manual focus to this. This magnetically attaches to the bottom of the light ring as well. So that is going to give you the ability to hang it there, and then you conveniently store the level on that, and then you can adjust the height and then put this back. I'm going to keep the moon out for a little bit because we're going to actually show that with the light ring. Let's go ahead and move just a little bit over here. And here are some support straps. So these straps will be used when you are loading up your orbit, and let's say you're a one-man operation and you want to take some of that strain or weight off of one or more of the arms, so either one side or both sides. As you're getting that balance set up between the two arms, you can connect this to the arm and to the orbit, and then that'll take that strain and help support that arm. You actually have two of these straps for doing that, one in each of these pouches, and so you can do both arms at the same time, and that's what this packet on each of these sides is for. One thing I just pulled out and put aside for a second here, this is a cell phone camera mount. So if you wanted to, say, connect up your phone and have it on the back side of the orbit in maybe one of the tube quarter 20 threads or someplace else, maybe that arm connector as I showed you down in this pouch, this will allow you to mount your cell phone. It opens up so you can put the cell phone in there and then have that as maybe like your behind the scenes camera, or if you're even using this as your primary camera that you are recording on with your orbit. So regardless, it gives you a nice device that is already included in the kit, so that if you wanted to have your cell phone on the orbit at some point, you can do so. So I'm going to go ahead and put this again back into my pouch here, and let's go ahead and get into the last major item in here, which is the light ring. So it comes shipping in this separate carrying pouch, which again is nice that they have that. So when you open it up, you're going to see that there is a foam pad attached. I'll just raise this up a little bit. So here's our foam pad. Save this, you'll remove it for use, but whenever you pack this up, you're going to transport it, whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to want to put this back on, because what this does is actually protect the power button. So the power button's right here, and so if you have this removed, that power button can be activated inadvertently while it's being transported, and that's going to kill your battery, and so you don't want to have that happen. So here is how you protect that. And again, this is how you turn it on. You have 32 levels of adjustment on the lighting, so I don't want to get you blinded there, but that is how you control that. There's also a laser, and then this area, when we were talking about the magnetic level and such, this area is where that would go. So the metal side goes right there, and now you have a level on your orbit. And then when you want to have the moon attached, you simply put that on there, and then it's going to dangle once this is mounted. So again, that's a nice touch. It gives you something from a target, which is great to have. There's also 2 screws that are included in that in this pouch. That's also in that zipper bag. And so these, once we get this ready to be mounted, these screws will actually go down here and then into the arm. Okay, so these screws are used to affix the light ring to the arm. And so you'll want to keep those with that large pouch. I'm going to go ahead and put these aside again, and I'm going to move some of this out of the way. I'm going to keep the light ring out and just put it aside again, and we're going to jump into the other pouch, the main compartments, after we cover the remote. So the remote is going to ship with a piece of plastic that is covering the battery. This uses a standard CR2032 battery, super easy to find. They have them at the grocery store, whatever. There's a lot of functions on the remote. That's been well published. I'm not going to try and tell you all the things that it does, but you have a the target here, this is to turn on the laser. And so if you want to use the laser sighting, and we'll talk about that just a little bit, this is going to turn the light ring on and off once it's got the main power button turned on. So you have to turn on the physical button, and then you can use the soft button in order to do that. And then we'll talk about everything else you can do. Let's go ahead and close this upper compartment so that it's not flopping around on me, and let's open up the larger compartment where really the real fun is, right? So this is mostly how you're going to see your kit ship, and when you first open it up, how it's going to look. I've had this in and out several times, so it's going to look maybe slightly different, but for the most part, this is what you're going to be presented with. Probably the major difference is I have kind of slid this wrench to the side. It is going to ship, and you might even be able to see the holes in this foam. It's going to ship with Ziploc attached here on the foam, and that way, once you remove that, you'll just want to find a spot in the kit. This wrench has the two sizes that you need for working with your Orbit Pro, and you'll see where we use these bolts that we need the wrench for. So don't lose this. It's super nice that it came with a wrench, so you don't have to provide your own, and just keep this in your kit with you at all times. So let's put this aside, and let's go ahead and tackle some of these small accessories here. This pouch is extremely important because this is how we would mount our camera. So we've got two different connectors that will connect to the arm and give us either a 1/4-20 or 3/8 connection. One has a single tightening device, the other has a double. I use the double for my camera because I figure it's going to be the most weight. If you want to have counterweight on the other side that you're hanging from this, if you have another camera, if you have a light, whatever it is, I would recommend maybe using that. And if you're using two cameras, put the heavier of the two cameras onto this particular one, just because it does have the ability to tighten down in two locations instead of just the one that this one does. We have a couple little of screws here, and let me just pull one of these out because I know that bag is going to be very difficult to see through. Let me just put that back into the little receiving area for it. So we have a rubber connector here, a gasket, and then a ring. This we use with that cable for the support arm, so this is where one of the clips would go, and then one would be attached to the arm, one will be attached to the Orbit itself. So we'll go ahead and just put this away, but that is what these particular devices are. There are 4 of them, okay? So that gives you one for each arm, and then 2 that connect on the Orbit, and that keeps it so that you can have that weight supported while you're getting that balancing set. Do not leave those supports connected to the Orbit Pro once you are ready to start recording. So once you start spinning that around, do not have that connected because it's not designed to do so. So here is our camera ball head. So this will connect to, again, this 1/4-20 that's been put in here. And so this will hang from the arm, and we'll show you that real quick. And then this is going to allow you to adjust the setting it's in. Mine is super rigid. Yours may not be this rigid, but mine is pretty stiff to move around. And then it does tighten down so that you can fix the position. And then you use this connection here for the hot shoe or cold shoe, depending on what you're end up doing. So once you have that slid on, you would just use this lever to tighten it so that it does not slip off of the camera and go flying someplace. So make sure when you go to connect this to your camera that you make sure you tighten this as tight as it will go without forcing it too hard, and that will make sure that your camera stays firmly affixed to the ball head. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this again. I'm going to put this back into the mode where it will store. So again, you're going to need to push this down in order to store it, and then I'm just going to pop that back in there and here as well. And then lastly, on here, this is really just a very nice device for hanging things, again from a 1/4-20 position and 3/8 on the other side. So we've got some flexibility there. It's great that we get this. Inside of the kit, there's also some replacement washers if those should happen to wear out on you. But again, just a nice, very flexible, how to move it around in different scenarios, get exactly the angle you want for things. So very nice that this was shipped with it. Kind of looks like it's Condor Blue. I don't know if it is from Condor Blue or not. They didn't specifically say, but kind of has that look to me. So I'm going to put all of these items back in this container, and let's work our way down. So let's pull this next section of items out and take a look. So what we have here are the 2 arm joints. So this is how you connect your arms together and also to the orbit. And so we have our teeth here that we loosen with this knob, and then you'll see it, and I think it's on the other videos, but the arms get inserted here, and you have the hex that you'll go ahead and tighten those arms in here. If you are doing a permanent installation, which the Pro Kit really isn't designed to be, the Pro Kit is supposed to be taken apart and put back together. Again, you're going to be taking these off and putting them back together, and so make sure that you keep your wrenches in the light, and I'll show you the light kit again where those are stored, but that's where you tighten those at. These are super nice arm joints, and they even have the rotating, so if you need to, for some reason, get those out of the way, however you want to do it. It's a super nice joint to work with. And then let's go ahead and take a look at, actually here, while we're looking at things here, this is one of the places that we can attach those loops. So again, for the support that we would have for holding up the arm as we are waiting, getting our balance set, that is what we'd use that for. And let me just remove this handled screw real quick, because this is by default the way it's going to ship from the factory. Okay, so this you'll see both of these are going to be shipping from the factory like this. You don't have to order a separate screw, but when talking to Josh on the Facebook group, we did figure out that this was just kind of an oversight. There wasn't a separate screw put for this. He actually recommended possibly borrowing a screw. I believe from probably the arm support, you wouldn't necessarily have to have 2 of them on that arm. I just ordered, and I'll put in a link below. I just put in an order for these. These are M8, I believe, by 20 screws, and I liked the fact that this gave me a little something to grip, and so I just purchased these. What are these for? Well, these are going to be how we connect our orbit rail supports to our stands themselves. And so on one end, this will get connected to that orbit support plate, and then here is where we would connect this to one of these pins that are going to be on most of your stands, and so that is how you would secure this. And let me just get out that next piece, because this will be a good time to illustrate one of these real quick before I get into the plate. You'll see that your ceiling mount, or the mount for the Orbit Pro itself, is shipped into in this little area, so you might see it hiding there. This is very important. So this plate is how we would mount the Orbit to the ceiling or to our rail setup that we use for our portable configuration. So let me just put this aside real quick, pull out one of these support brackets. And so here is the design here. These are designed to have speed rail put through them. Okay, and then you tighten these down at the width that you want. They don't have to be any particular way. When I set this up with speed rail, I pushed them out to the furthest ends just to give me some room to work with. I am holding them in the recommended orientation. What I mean by that is you'll want the speed rail sitting in these holders and sitting on top of the plate, not with the speed rail below and the plate above. And the reason is this plate is very, very strong. It'd be much better to have this weight pressing against this plate versus the speed rail pulling down and that weight being supported by this screw. That would not be ideal, right? It may not be a problem, but ideally what you would have is this turned this way for all three. And you will have three of these. That is here, one that I took out here, and then one on this side. So you have three of these. Two will connect to your stands, and how you get that done, again, is going to be like this. Again, here's the pin, the baby pin, or junior pin, I'm not sure which one that is, but that pin will connect there. And then we need that screw that's shipped in this connector, and it'll come down here, and we'll tighten it up. Okay, so you'll have two of these at the ends connected to your stands, and then you'll want to use this wrench and the appropriate size to tighten this down. Once you do so, then you'll have these two ends sitting on your stands. The third one will be used to support your orbit itself. So let's take a look at this real quick. Let me just actually steal this back. I'm going to remove this real quick. So utilizing that same plate, if you recall, I had the bolt and nut that I showed you earlier. So here it is again. Remove the nut from the bolt, and we're going to take that, and this is going to be how we connect the Orbit Pro to our speed rail setup. And again, you'll want to tighten this down. One thing I would love to see is maybe in a 2.0 a way to make it so that this plate can't turn. I think once we have it tightened pretty tight, it's not going to go anywhere, but I'd love to see that while we're setting it up, where we could have maybe just even a couple pins that it would hold that in place, but not a huge deal. And so again, here is what we would do is this would actually be on the speed rail as well, and that's what suspends the orbit from the speed rail configuration. And let's go ahead now and jump ahead to the arms. So let's take out the arms and the extension pole. So the extension pole is going to be first. So here is the extension pole with the Pro Kit. It is already assembled, and so this would be used to secure this from the mounting plate that's connected to your speed rail. And this is how you loosen and extend out the tube to get your maximum drop from the ceiling or from the speed rail. So in either configuration, this is how we mount it and how you get extension. And then you can tighten this down in any position you want. Okay, so how do we connect this? Well, we simply loosen this screw, and inside of there, that is going to, okay, we've got clearance. So this attaches like so, and you will want to get that flush. And then once you have that flush, see, it's flush. You can then tighten this down. And voila, you have a extension pole attached to your speed rail, and you can now put this to the height that you want it to mount your Orbit Pro. So let's go ahead and put this whole assembly aside here, and let's just pull out one of the arms real quick. So you're going to have two 24-inch arms, you're going to have two 16-inch arms. You're also going to have these screw-in end caps. These are useful for hanging counterweights or if you want to have, say, another camera that you're hanging off here, basically anything that would be a 1/4 thread, you can do that. And since I mentioned counterweights, let's talk about these weights here real quick. There are 3 weights on each of these sides, so there are 6 weights total with the Pro Kit setup, which is different than the other kits. They only have 3 of these weights. Each of these weights is 1 pound, and they do have a threaded screw. So if you want to, this can literally hang off of the back of this tube. Now, only one side of the tube is threaded, so keep that in mind, that if you go to put it into the other side, it is not threaded over here. So again, this gives you that counterweight. Now, where do these arms go? Well, they connect into the arm support that is going to hang from the Orbit Pro body itself. And again, save all of this foam. Okay, this foam is how you pack this up and keep this safe when you're traveling from location to location, or if you check this bag at the airport. So do not lose any of this foam. Always pack it back up with the foam. It's very helpful in protecting this equipment. It's going to get some nicks and bumps and scratches and things like that from normal use, but no sense in having it have some additional problems in that process. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this counterweight real quick here. Because I want to show something else. Okay, so by default what you would do is insert your arms in here, and then you'd use these screws to secure it. Right now, this is the orientation that you want, and you know that because when you go to install the light ring, you need these screw holes on the bottom to attach it. So also your level is going to face this direction. So make sure that you have this orientation right. These screws will be on top. These are the screws to connect it to the Orbit motor mechanism itself. And so let's go ahead then, since we've talked about the Orbit motor, let's go ahead and pull that out real quick and just discuss that really quickly as it pertains to the Pro Kit versus just the standard. So again, once we get this pulled out, this actually will have a protective bag that covers it. I saved mine, it's in here, but just for convenience, I just have left it out of that bag. So here is the Orbit. This is the top side. This is the side that will get installed into the mount. Let's go ahead and take this off and just cover this really quickly. There is a lock washer that you actually need to change this orientation real quick when you go to mount it. So on the Orbit, again, this is standard. This is not any different than the other kits, but 12 volt and USB power. We will put this nut back on, and then the lock washer is used to make sure that if as this is going around and changing directions, all those things, that it doesn't accidentally start unscrewing the Orbit from the system, from the mount, which would be a problem. Let me see if I've got this such a place that you can see. Yes. So you would install the Orbit like so, and then when we get to the point where we have this all the way down, we will use that wrench once we get this all the way into the support pole, into the drop mount. Let me just, this is super slow. I apologize, this is a little awkward when you're trying to speak on camera and just process at the same time. Completely put on there for you just so you can see it again. And then once you get there, what you're going to want to do is find the appropriate side. This is the right one, and then just tighten this down so that this is secure. Okay, so once you have this mounted, then the next step is going to be removing this nut on the Orbit itself. And again, we're going to put the arm. The arm needs to be oriented so that these screws are up, and you remember that the light bar light ring, excuse me, can attach. And so I actually need to flip this around. You'll notice that there are grooves in the motor. I'm going to actually uninstall the mounting plate real quick so that I can cut down on the weight on this as I'm moving it around. Okay, so you'll notice real quick here, there are grooves there, so you may be able to see that. Those grooves are going to marry up with, and I'm going to take this arm off because it's going to be easier for me to handle without the arm attached. So we line up these screws with that groove, and that's what keeps it able to have the orbit spinning and stay in its position, so that this arm spins with the spindle and not spinning freely. So there we go. That is how you install that. You would tighten this with the Allen wrench. I'm just grabbing that light bar because it'll be our next step. So we didn't cover this yet, but this is where the tools install. One thing that was mentioned, but it was super subtle. These feet that plug it into the light ring, they are keyed, meaning one side is larger than the other. And so pay attention to that as you go to install this, as you will break those teeth off if you're not careful, or at least bend them in the process of installing it if you're not careful. So you have Allen wrench storage here. Again, do not push it down, slide it in, okay? So slide those in to store those tools. Keep them in your light bar, and you'll use the Allen wrench here to secure these, right? So you tighten these down nicely. And then really the last step is you would grab the light ring, and you'll know the orientation it needs to be because again, you want the light, the laser, everything pointing down. So once you are ready to install that, you simply find the orientation that it goes on, okay? And I've got a lot to work with here. Let me get the screws for those real quick. Okay, so when you are ready to install the light ring, it is going to go like this. Oops. One thing I didn't do, almost forgot to put the nut for the arm. So you will put the nut on there, tighten that up. Again, it's just more support for the system. And then there's an indentation in the light ring to have room to go around that nut. Okay, so make sure you line it up so that the screw holes are going to be on the arm, and you simply put these screws in there. When you have them aligned properly, they're just going to screw right into the arms. There are two of them. So, and I don't think you need to make these super tight, so I would be careful. This is plastic around here, so don't feel the need to like crank those down. There's not going to be a lot of force acting on that, and there are a couple quarter 20 spots there, but now you can see that we have the light ring. I am going to power this light ring on real quick, this to show the laser on the bag, hopefully. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So there, hopefully you can see on the bag the laser. So that would also help you find, say, the center of where the subject was going to be, especially if it's up high. That's going to give you some view. Now, be careful. This is a laser, so don't look directly into that light. There's some warning labels on the system itself. If you're aware of that, you can kind of keep your you can take that label off. Also, don't point your camera. Have the laser pointing at the camera itself. That could damage your sensor. But if I'm pointing it down, right, I'm just picking up the light. I'm not shooting the light directly at the sensor. But just keep that in mind as you are working with the unit, that it does have a laser, and you can activate that laser on it. So I think that covers the things that are unique about the Orbit Pro versus the standard kit. I hope this was helpful. I am planning on doing a part 2 where I show the installation of the Orbit onto a rack setup, and so hopefully that material that I need to demonstrate that comes soon, and I'll be able to get that video out to you to help fill in some of that gap that there is right now, because the guys with Marbl are busy helping make sure that everyone gets their Orbit kit, whatever that kit happens to be. So thanks very much for watching. Again, this is Bruce with Dad's Talk Tech.